Welcome everyone to the SBK betting podcast, a Royal Ascot special. So special that we brought two of our massive team under one roof. Tom Collins from SBK, great to see you. Thanks
Great
for
to see
joining
you,
us.
Jess. Yeah, it's the first time for this, isn't it? It's a little bit different, but looking forward to it.
Yeah, and so special that we've managed to get Ross Millar out of his chateau from France all the way to England for a flat special preview of the SBK podcast. What have we done to turn you?
Flat special, you know I'm here. Love the flat.
Well, we've definitely had a good beginning of the flat season so far that we're looking forward to an even better Royal Ascot. And I think, if anything, the international flavour adds to it, makes it a race festival full of quality. And I know that you love your international elements, Tom, so you must be delighted with the shape of what we've got to look forward to.
Yeah, it brings together my two favourite things, UK horse racing and US horse racing. Really looking forward to Wesley Ward's horses coming over, Christophe Clements as well, and Graham Motion's, Irad Ortiz coming over as well. I've been waiting years for Irad to come over. He's the leading rider in America. Really looking forward to seeing how he fares against our best jockeys.
Yeah, it's going to be a fanboy moment for you, Irad.
Definitely.
His first time over at Royal Ascot. He's going to ride all of Wesley Ward's horses, which I think is a crucial point we'll get to a little later on. But we've got plenty of races to get into. All the Group 1s we're going to focus on. 8 races over the course of 5 days. We're going to crack on into the Queen Anne Stakes, the Group 1, the mile that they're going down the straight. And with a rating of 125, Baid, I mean, what more can we say about him? He's unstoppable. We've got no Master of the Seas to take him on. Really, because I'd imagine that we're going to go through this quite quickly. Ross, any strong opinions about this race, about Baid? Is he unbeatable when you're looking at this?
Well, he's not unbeatable in that he's a horse and he's not a machine, and things go wrong. Let's hope it doesn't. He's got to run somewhere near his mark, and he wins this comfortably. 2 to 7 is not a price I'm interested in at all. So, looking for a bit of each way value. Accidental Agent, standing dish at this meeting. This will be his 5th appearance. Won this race in 2018. He was slowly away last year, only finished 7th, but he comes in good heart. Won his debut, reappearance, 2nd then at over 7 furlongs at Ascot. I think at a decent price, he's there or thereabouts, because I don't think there's an awful lot of opposition against Baid. If they go hard, then that's going to suit him all the better. He'll finish strongly. Rated 112 now, comes in off a highest rating of nearly 3 years, so he could just be getting back somewhere near his best. And I think I don't think he's got any chance of beating Baid if Baid runs anywhere near his best. But of the others, I think he's as good as anything in the race, and is a decent price, so I'd have a go at him each way.
Yeah, 20 to 1 to finish in the placings. He's obviously 2018 winner. The shortest price winner of this race was Frankel at 1 to 10. Can you see him by getting to as short as that?
No, I think he's probably going to go off around the prices now, the same price as Palace Pier went off last year, around 2 to 7. And I think he'll follow Palace Pier and win this race easily, probably by a wider margin than Palace Pier did last year. He's 7 from 7, looks supreme on his comeback. All of last year, just looked one of the best horses in training. But as Ross said, you don't want to take a short price, especially in the first race at Royal Ascot. You know, this is a long week. You need to look after your punting, be careful, gamble responsibly. And Baid at 2 to 7 isn't gambling responsibly, in my opinion. Yes, and this is an each-way race, but at the same time, it's a very difficult each-way race, I think. There are horses in here that are going to be ridden to win and take on Baid. And they're the horses that I want to be taking on for an each-way perspective. The likes of Real World, I think he'll be ridden to win. Lights On will be ridden to win. And I prefer a horse that will be ridden to run his best race, which is Sabuska. He's a massive price. William Buick's going to take the ride. Form figures of 4-1-4, 3-3-0-2 on a straight course at Ascot. 3rd in this race last year. Huge price, good each way play. Sabuska for me.
Yeah, 33 to 1. They're absolutely earmarked this race. So he has got such good form figures at Ascot as well. He loves coming here. He seems to be in good heart as well, being gone all around the world to get here. We just hope that there will be at least 8 runners, don't we, for that each way value. I'm with you with Sabuska. As it stands, we've got 10 in there. It's whether anyone is prepared to take on Baid, but I think we can all safely agree that he is the most likely winner. And we need superstars to begin a Royal Ascot like this. And like any big good festival, you need the headline acts, and this most certainly is. So we'll carry on straight into the Kingsdown Stakes, because this has got a real quality international feel to it, with Australia's self-proclaimed fastest horse in the world taking on America's fastest in the world, at least according to Wesley Ward. It's a huge showdown with the best of Britain and Ireland thrown into the mix. TC, you're an American specialist. With Wesley Ward, what do we have in Golden Pal? He's the 2 to 1 favourite, but he's been beaten in the UK at the Nunthorpe. Why should he come and win this King's Stand?
Yeah, he's 0 for 2 in Britain, and people will look to both of those races and say this horse is obviously overhyped by his trainer, Wesley Ward. We know he's a very bullish guy. He's bullish about all his runners, so you're going to expect that kind of response when he's asked by the media how good is Golden Pal. The answer is Golden Pal is fantastic. He's a very good horse. Wesley's not just being bullish about this horse for no reason. Obviously, he's owned by Coolmore, and Coolmore like to do the same kind of thing. So you do have to pay attention to that, but I really rate Golden Pal. His gate speed is second to none in the world. There is no doubt about that. No horse has 2 strides after the stalls and can just instantly go a length clear. Golden Pal can do that. My one worry in this race is that Winter Power is also in the field. She is electric from the start. If they take each other on, then that could be the end of Golden Pal. We could see Golden Pal crumble, and we'll see what happened to Wesley Ward's horses last year at Royal Ascot, then run 4 furlongs in the lead and get past. I think Golden Pal has the stamina to win this race. I think he's good enough to win this race. He's 6 from 9 in his career. He ran an exceptional race in the Norfolk at 2. Yes, he got beat by the Learjet, but that was on rain-softened ground, which wouldn't have been anywhere near ideal for him. The next 7 days forecast, Royal Ascot, sun. Perfect for Golden Pal. Rattling fast ground. I think he'll make all.
So, tell me, why did he get beaten in the Nunthorpe then? Because he was clearly, he came into that in the best form he'd ever been in. He had the right jockey on, he actually knew the track, whereas Irada T's another thing. We're not too sure whether he even knows exactly how stiff that end of this racetrack is. And all his best work has been around a bend. That's what I can't come away from. And throw a nature strip as well. He could go really hard early on. They're all going to cut each other's throats.
Yeah, I mean, that is the case. We might see that happen. And if so, then you're looking at like Arecibo, a massive price to finish fast and win this race. But I think what happened at York, it was York, and you know, every horse doesn't handle that track. The Knavesmire can be suitable to some and not others. I'm willing to put a line through it. I don't think we saw the best Golden Pal that day. He wasn't even as quick early on as we normally see him. Ascot last year, his other run in Britain, straight track, as you said, stiff 5 furlongs. He handled it very well on ground he wouldn't have liked. I'm happy to put a line through York. I think Oriel T is a very good jockey booking. He might get some stick on Twitter. I've already said this, but if you don't know his riding style, then you might not love him, but he's fantastic at judging the pace. I'm really hoping that Golden Pal can get this week off to a great start for America.
Okay, so TC's keeping his faith in Golden Pal. Ross, how do you view him? Because he's clearly been hyped up. Wesley Ward loves to hype up his horses. You've got to take it with a pinch of salt. I don't believe that this is the track that sort of suits him. He gets the best out of him over in the US style tracks, and there are horses in here that could be waiting for him to go off for too fast and just wait to peg him back.
Yeah, I mean, that I would be nowhere near the knowledge that TC is of US racing, and so you have to respect what TC says, that we haven't seen the best of him over here. But from what I have seen and from what I can go on, I just don't see Ascot suiting him. I think Irad Ortiz is a negative in that he rides flat tracks all the time, and until you've ridden a track, you're just not gonna. You can talk to as many people as you like, get as much information as you like, until you've ridden it in real time. I think there's a danger that he won't realise how much getting this trip gets. I think there's bags of pace in this race. The horse I like against him is Twilight Calls, who TC's mentioned in previous podcasts, travels really well through the race and then flatters to deceive. I thought he was actually better last time in the Temple Stakes. You know, he got stopped at a crucial moment, but he finished off quite well. And I could just see a scenario where he is able to travel in behind them. As you mentioned earlier, they go a bit quick and they get each other early and they're stopping in front. I think he's good enough to capitalise on that, and I think 6-1 is a fair price. In a race where if Golden Pal wins, it's great for the meeting. It's great for TC. It's great for the meeting because it brings a lot of positive stories into the sport, and we need that. But I just think Irad Ortiz is going to take a little bit of getting to know Ascot, so that's the reason to oppose him.
Yeah, there's a couple of negatives hanging on over him as a 2-1 favourite. Twilight Calls, he definitely has got a big race in him, doesn't he? He's got Ryan Moore jocked up as well. Does that give you confidence behind him a little bit more as well?
Well, after winning the Oaks from Stall 1, absolutely, yeah. Anything Ryan Moore sits on is, as we said last week, needs respecting. So I think it's crucial they go quick early, and I think the quicker they go early, the more it's going to suit this horse. And as TC alluded to, that there could be bags of pace early. You know, they could break the record for 3 furlongs, maybe 3.5, but they'll be slowing over the last furlong and a half. I'm sure of that.
Okay, so we got one for America, one for UK. I'm going to go Australia, which I can't believe I'm saying, because I'm normally desperate to get them beat. But it has been a while since the Aussies have had success. They've obviously had good results in the past. They've won 4 out of 7 King Stands from 2003 to 2009. Choisir, Takeover Target, Miss Andretti, Nature Strip. Look, I've done my digging on this horse, and I've been extremely impressed by what I've seen. He's got the speed, a bit like Golden Pal for 5 furlongs, but crucially, he also stays that extra furlong to prove that this stiff 5 furlongs should be okay. Whereas Golden Pal around the bends brings out the best in him, and I think he needs a sharper test. So I'm going to give some respect to Nature Strip at 9-4. They are very confident by this horse. He's got bags of experience as well, and I'm really delighted he's here to add an extra element. So going to throw him in the mix of what is a truly brilliant renewal of the King Stand Stakes for the only just the third race on day 1 of Royal Ascot. Right, we're going to head straight into the St James's Palace over the mile, the 3-year-olds, and will be long odds on, I'd imagine, for Caribus, currently 4-9. No native trail to take him on, but we've got some sort of unknown quantities, the types that we've seen in the past come through in this race, Without Parole is one of them that have come through the slower ranks, and could be anything. My Prospero could be one of those. Maljum is the German 2000 Guineas winner. He's also in here as well. So it's a bit like Baid. Are we going to try and take on Caribus, or do we respect him enough that he's the likely winner of this race? What do you think?
I'm not going to take him on. I think he's going to win this race. He's a better price than Baid. I know he's still very short, but he's a better price. Maybe he's one for the accumulators, the SBK accumulators. There just isn't a horse in here that I want to be looking at with an each-way view. Like, I don't really like playing for second or third anyway in these kind of races. But in this race, I can't make a solid case for anything to finish second or third that I'm confident they're definitely going to place. Whereas Caribus, son of Dubawi, suggests middle distance, but he's an out-and-out miler, perfect to this trip. Should be 4 from 4, but he threw away the Royal Lodge last year, as we all know. People actually gave Buick some stick for that, which was ridiculous. He went for home a little bit too soon, but the horse was just threw it away himself. He won the Guineas extremely impressively, beating the horse I thought was the best 3-year-old this year. And I know it's a boring selection, but they've kept him fresh for this. He's by far the most likely winner. I just want to get a winner on the board on day 1, Jess, and this should be it at Caribus.
Yeah, well, I think that treble is kind of making a lot of bookmakers a little bit nervous if Golden Pal and Bailly can do the job and Caribus can add to it. It's a bit of a shame, Ross, looking through this race, that there's no big standout from Ireland really, and Aidan O'Brien doesn't have a mighty selection of 3-year-old milers too. So it's really Caribus's race to lose.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we spoke about the Guineas, my sort of angle to take him on was that I didn't see that he could get past Native Trail, and I didn't think he'd want to get to the front in front of Native Trail, and that's exactly what he did, and he ran very strongly to the line. So whatever he did in Middle Park was clearly greenness, immaturity. So there's very few holes in him. Whether I'd back him or not, but as a selection to put up against him, Berkshire Shadow at 25-1. He finished his 2-year-old really disappointingly, but thought he took a big step back in the right direction in the 2000 Guineas. He stayed on well in the late stages. A stiffer track here can suit him, and his single best piece of form last year came at this track. So there's, might be reaching at straws, but there are chances that he can close the gap on Caribus. Whether he can get past him, I think is unlikely. But at 25-1. He's a horse I like. I still think there's a better performance in there. And the Yard are in better form now than they were when the Guineas was run. Not they were in bad form then, but they've just really started to come on now in the last month. So 25-1 for an interest in the race would be my selection.
Yeah, Andrew Balding's really filling the placings with some big price horses, 150-1 second with Huya Mala in the Derby as one of them. I think if you like Berkshire Shadow, you shouldn't disrespect Lusail. At 40-1, a bigger price, not far behind Berkshire Shadow in the 2000 Guineas, but he was drawn 12, where we know was the wrong side to be in the end, the same side as Native Trail. He got upset in the stalls, lost a good few lengths, and encountered a fairly rough trip through and looked fairly uncomfortable, I thought, on the track. He managed to make up lengths as the race began to develop, and he did well to get extremely close to Berkshire Shadow, who was 5th, and Lusail was 6th. And I'm a bit like you, Ross. I don't think he's not going to get close to Grebus, but he could definitely finish a good third. And at 40-1, that's a price I'd like to take in a race that the Hannons have done well in. But yeah, possibly not the best renewal of the St James's Palace we've ever seen. But again, for racing, for the sport, for big stars, we'd like to see Grebus continue on this brilliant trajectory as a 3-year-old. So we'll head into Wednesday, and we'll look ahead to the Prince of Wales Stakes, the last opportunity for these older horses to race without the 3-year-olds. At some stage, we like to hope that some of these and maybe some of the milers might step up and trip. The likes of Desert Crown might be facing off with the best of the older horses in this division. No Adair, the Derby winner, no Mishriff as well, we heard today, but we do have a very exciting prospect in Baybridge, 11-10 currently favourite. The Japanese horse, Charrier, is 100-30, State of Rest is 9-2, and Lord North 7-1. We don't have, it's not going to be a massive field at this stage, with only, we've still got a good few days to go until the final declarations for this race, and we've actually only got, it looks like 6 in this race, with a few coming out. So again, not a huge amount to go on, but I do think there's an interesting test for Baybridge TC with Charrier. What did you make of him? Should we underestimate what he achieved in the Shima Classic?
It was a very good performance. I knew absolutely nothing about him before that day, but he managed to beat Yabir, who's a good horse, albeit he's subsequently lost in America, finished third. You put a line through that American run, by the way. Those who didn't catch it, he missed a kick by 5 lengths and just had no chance on a track that favours front runners or horses running close to the pace. He'll have to step up to beat Baybridge. I think Baybridge is the up-and-coming middle-distance horse that could really take all before him this year. He could be an absolute star. He's one of the typical stout improvers, isn't he? Sir Michael Stout's won this race 4 times before, obviously targeted it with Baybridge. He was so impressive in the Brigadier Gerard, like so impressive. Last year he won a listed race, and he won the London Gold Cup, which is obviously the best 3-year-old handicap that everyone looks at for future stars. But no one really 100% knew whether he was a Group 1 horse. This year, I think in the Brigadier Gerard, he proved he's a Group 1 horse waiting to run in a Group 1. This is his chance to shine, and I think he will do so. Unfortunately, it's his 3 favourites in the first 4 races we covered.
I was about to say, I'm slightly concerned that it's all paying a bit obvious, but I know we're going to get there. But yeah, I mean, there's a perfect cases for all of them. There is a lot of very, very potential superstars in the first couple of days, aren't there?
Yeah, all these group races tend to have a dominant favourite. Albeit maybe people will try and take on Golden Pound, the King's Stand, but there are short price favourites in all of these to start off the week, and those people who like doing the weekly ACCAs, and I know there are loads of them, they might be hoping that they're on a good roll after the first day or two. Yeah,
and Aidan O'Brien, well, Broome is still in the race at the moment, but Ryan Moore is booked up for Baybridge, which either suggests that he's been given the go-ahead to ride for Sir Michael Stout as opposed to Aidan O'Brien, or Broome doesn't even run, which is just another horse Baybridge doesn't need to worry about.
Yeah, I'll be very intrigued actually if Broome does run, because he's very good on firm ground. He ran really well at the Breeders' Cup. He could be a big price, but with only 6 or fewer runners, you're not going to get decent each way opportunity, maybe just fighting for second. Interesting also if Irene Ortiz is on Broome. He rode him in the Breeders' Cup, and obviously he hasn't got a ride in this race, and if Ryan's on Baybridge, which he's almost guaranteed to be, Irad could take that ride, and it could be intriguing forecast there.
Yeah, it'd be another opportunity for him to learn about the track, Ross, because yes, he rode him in the Breeders' Cup, but that was at Del Mar, a track that he knows well, so I'm not sure if that would be a help or not for Broome.
He'd get a nice view of the countryside for certain.
Yeah, so your thoughts of this, but Baybridge, what he did in the Brigadier Gerard was pretty special. Could he be the next big thing, and also could he and make it quite awkward for Sir Michael Stout, because one day he might even have to take on Desert Crown if they drop him back in trip.
That's an interesting thought, isn't it? I mean, I was fairly confident that Moshadaf was beatable last time, but I thought Adair was the horse that was going to do it. Possibly he wasn't tuned up, but the way Baybridge went past the pair of them very quickly and then lengthened away from them was really impressive. And you have to think Sir Michael Stout trains them to improve with the season. So he was clearly ready enough.
Yeah.
But you could easily think there's a bit more to come. So yeah, odds on the price we're talking about with Caribus and Bader is just not my MO at all. But Baybridge actually tempts me. I think he's a really good horse. I think we're barely scratching the surface, and I think this isn't the toughest race. I think he takes all the beating, and with Ryan Moore on, I mean, Richard Kingscott, I guess, would have been the stand-in super sub, would have been no bad thing, but on the big meetings, Ryan Moore is the man you want unless you're in a certain faction of Twitter. And I just think, he takes all the beating, and I don't see what does beat him unless something goes wrong.
I thought he gave Love an exceptional ride last year in this race. He controlled it from the front. Did you imagine he could do that with Bay Bridge? He seems quite uncomplicated tactically.
Yeah, I mean, I liked the fact that he was able to get him to settle and relax at Sandown, but he looked like he could have picked it up at any point. So I'm sure if there's not enough pace on, he can go on comfortably and do his own thing for sure. Yeah,
Bay Bridge, I think it's a pretty comprehensive belief that. I mean, I'm not sure there are many races where we're all going to agree, but I think comprehensively we've all agreed that Bay Bridge is going to be one of the stars of the show, and this is not the most competitive. Sharia, a lot of respect for him, but it's tricky to know exactly what he is, and maybe he got the best run of the race as well in the Shima Classic, although albeit has worked out well with Huckham and Alenker behind him, so he's a good addition to the race anyway. We'll head on to Thursday then. We're moving swiftly through, and this is where we get to the Gold Cup, and a race really, TC, that revolves around us working out whether Trushan or not is going to show up, because the feeling is that it's unlikely, especially as he's currently 4-1, Kyprios is 5-2, Stradivarius the 3-10 winner 100-30. So you'd imagine based on that there's a feeling that he won't do, as you touched upon the ground. I've seen there's a bit of rain maybe on Wednesday, but probably not enough for them to take this test.
Yeah, I think we're looking at good ground or good to firm anyway in places, but there are so many horses in the Gold Cup that want give underfoot. Now most of these races obviously we want to see firm ground, well, good to firm ground, safe for horses, but quick ground, perfect for flat sprinters and middle distance sorts. Obviously in this race most horses actually want cut in the ground, Trushan being the primary horse we're talking about here. Also Scope, Princess Zoe, Mojo Star, Scazino, Tashcan. There are so many that do their best run best on soft ground. So it'll be intriguing what the ground is by Thursday. I also think Stradivarius doesn't really want it rattling fast. They actually assessed the ground before. He's fine on it, but they've assessed before and they've wanted a little bit of give underfoot. So I thought this is a real difficult race at this point to assess. I think Kyprios obviously deserves to be up there in the market. He's looked so good this year, and 4-year-olds have won 7 of the last 10 renewals of this race. He could be the second coming. We don't really know what he's beaten so far in 2 Irish races, but he's looked very impressive. He deserves to be favourite at this point without knowing the ground. But I'm going to take a price on one at a huge.
Thank gosh, another favourite. I was worried for a second.
This is right out there.
Okay.
I don't know if it's just because I've been putting up favourites so far, and I've gone right. I need to just buck the trend here and go for something at a huge price.
Here we go.
It's going to be Alignac, not to be confused with Alunac, who's also in the field. Alignac, the Jamie Osborne trained runner, massive price, and if you look at his form, you'll think this horse has no chance. And look, he might be out the back of the TV, but he's very much been underestimated in the market. He's completely unexposed over this kind of trip. Trips in excess of 2 miles, actually. He's only run over this kind of trip twice in the past. He shaped really nicely when 4th in the Dubai Gold Cup 80 odd days ago. He's been given a good break since then. And that day, he stayed on powerfully from behind. Yes, I know the race wasn't as good as this. He's facing the likes of Stradivarius, maybe Trushan, etc., Kyprios. But he stayed on powerfully. I like the fact he's with Jamie Osborne, who targets this meeting with his limited string. But Racing Sand always runs well here, etc. I think he's probably been underestimated. I think 66, 80-1, whatever price he's going to go off on the day or whatever price he is now, he could hit the frame. I'll have a small dabble on him, Jess.
Gosh, but not one that I was expecting. Do you imagine that Safi might be given the opportunity by her dad to have a go on this?
Yeah, I do, and imagine if she wins. That would be absolute scenes in the winners' enclosure. It would be a career best victory for Safi and obviously a family occasion.
Yeah, 50-1 we can give you as it stands. Maybe you've already nibbled at it. That's why it's come in from the 66s. He's obviously not actually been tested at 2 mile 4 furlong as well, so it's slight unknown as well. Do you feel like it's just like a more of an open race than we give it credit, because we always wrap our head around Stradivarius and Trushan, and actually that we saw Princess Zoe run a monster race to come second in it last year? Yeah,
I think it's open to a shock, not a shock winner perhaps. I don't think Alignac's good enough to win. I have to clarify that, but it's definitely open to a shock. Some of these horses can take it on each other from a long way out, and if the ground isn't right for some of them, who knows how they're going to perform? You know, if Trushan turns up and he doesn't like the ground, he could be out the back of the TV. Like we've seen it before with horses in this race. I'm hoping that, because of the distance, some horses don't stay either, obviously. So hoping that you see a minor pace collapse up front. And Alignac is one of those horses that's going to be running really cold out the back and hopefully stay on past beaten horses. Maybe he hits third. And if he does, you'll probably hear me celebrating from my house in Basingstoke.
Well, I think we kind of underestimated Subjectivist coming into this race last year, but
Yeah.
also wasn't he given Ross the most magical ride as well?
Unbelievable ride.
And that's what can do this race. And actually, Frankie wasn't quite at his best on Stradivarius. Not that he would have got to him, but that's what it can all be about this race.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, if you're on something that's got no right to win, you almost have more free rein to try something. Because if it doesn't work, no one notices, and if they do notice, they don't blame you. I'm still sticking with the slightly boring angle, I'm afraid, and I just think Kyprios has got a profile that suggests he could make up into a real high class cup horse. You know, Aidan O'Brien's got a great record at creating them. As TC alluded to, he's been really impressive. Okay, Search for a Song, I mean, he's a dual Irish Cesarewitch winner, full brother actually to Kyprios. But yeah, he just looks like he's going to step up for this step up in trip. The reappearance didn't really tell you anything other than he's still got 4 legs and he's in good health. But visually really impressive in the vintage stakes. I think Trushan is vulnerable because even if they think the ground's safe enough to run, it's not going to be optimal, I don't think. And Stradivarius, he looked better on his reappearance, but I kind of almost wonder if that's going to be his best run this year. Last year, he just looked to me like he was uncomfortable. He looked like he was starting to become a little bit moody at times, I thought. And I just wonder whether first race back after a break, maybe he's got a bit more fire, and then as the sort of rigmarole of the training takes its toll as you go through the season, I'd be keen to oppose him. So yeah, I thought Kyprios was the one.
I know he's not as exposed as Order of St George was coming into this race, but it does feel similar. They had a lot of options at 1 mile 6 furlongs, and then was eased into it and just actually blew them apart as further that he went.
Absolutely, they clearly have a very good system at highlighting these Galileos who are just so tough. You know, talented but tough. They seem to be able to find the right one, and I use the word make them into cup horses, because I think they can pick and choose and say that's the cup horse, that one's going to win the Group 2s at 1 mile 4 and 1 mile 6. So yeah, I think you have to respect what they know about winning this race.
They kind of need a good older horse as well, don't they?
Yeah.
They're scraping out a bit of a barrel when you look at this Royal Ascot Festival. But yeah, interesting case for Kyprios. I have a lot of respect for him. 5-2 favourite as it stands. I'm going to give an honourable mention for a little bit of Princess Zoe, because I did think she ran that brilliant second in this race last year, and she showed that the ground, she's not completely inept to running on quicker ground, although that was a bit of a it was a bit of a scramble at the finish in the Ascot trial, but it's worked out with Trushan, so I don't think that she should be overlooked, and a brilliant training performance from Tony Mullins. 12-1 she is, but Scope is the one that I'm really fascinated by. Yes, I think he needs a bit more given the ground, but I would be happy for Trushan to be in this race and Scope to take him on, because I think that he's got more class than Trushan. Big words from me, but I genuinely think he's going to be a better horse as he gets older. He wouldn't have been 100% tuned up for Newbury, where he got into a battle with the eventual winner and just beaten by a neck. That was a tough performance, and I think he can really show his hand in these cup races this season. So if it's just on the faster side, it might not be ideal for him, but I think he's a horse that we need to truly have respect for throughout the rest of the season. He's 6-1, and hopefully give Rob Hornby a bit of redemption for some nightmare couple of runs on the big stage. So that's a good look at the Gold Cup, which I think it really deserved its look at, because it's not as clear cut as some of these other Group 1s. But we'll head on to Friday for the Commonwealth Cup. 6 furlongs for the 3-year-old colts only. This race is fast becoming one of my favourite races of the week, really due to the progression plenty of these 3-year-olds make up in the early part of the year, from a 2 to a 3-year-old, and it's added a really interesting dimension to Royal Ascot, and we've seen some really good results. And I think from a podcast point of view, we've got our teeth into this crop of horses throughout the season, and TC's favourite horse in training will line up here, which we'll get to a little bit later. But Ross, I'll start with you first, because Perfect Power as favourite, I think it's a deserved 92 favourite in here. We've got prices, quite nice price about everything. El Caballo unbeaten 6-1, Eras 8-1, 10-1 for Go Besgo, Twilight Jet. But it was kind of inevitable that Perfect Power I thought was always going to come back to the Commonwealth Cup after that tilt in the Guineas route.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great race. I think it's one of my favourite races of the week, and lot of talk at the moment about getting rid of races. This is a race that's been put in, and it's added to the week and to the programme for these horses that perhaps don't stay the mile, don't want to take on the older boys at the sprint distances. I took the view that last year's 2-year-olds were a fairly moderate bunch as a generality, and they struggled to be consistent. Perfect Power was the one that, other than an unlucky run at Goodwood, he put his runs together very well. Bags of speed to win the Norfolk over 5, and then this year he's come out and won the Greenham over 7. I think perhaps in hindsight his class got him to win that as opposed to stamina, and he clearly didn't stay in the 2,000 guineas. I think dropping back, he's going to see this trip out really well. He's got plenty of speed. The only minor issue I see is that Richard Fahey's spoken about how they changed his training to try and draw out a bit more stamina for the guineas, and he now looks happier training him as a sprinter. If that training him for stamina has blunted a little bit speed, potentially that's a problem, but I don't see it being a big problem. But it has the potential to have blunted some of that speed, taken some of that sharpness out. But he should see the trip out really well. At a bigger price, one I throw in is Hermano Estrella. Only had the 2 runs, clearly didn't stay in the 1,000 guineas in Ireland, but on a sole start as a 2-year-old, she beat the subsequent Queen Mary winner, Quick Susie, and beat her quite nicely on soft ground over 5. So you think she's got enough stamina to stay out the 6. She's going to need a good draw, as they all will, and obviously we don't know that yet. But she could just surprise a few. I think she's clearly got ability.
So 2 sort of horses that have been trained to a mile coming back in trip for you. And draw-wise, what would you like to be drawn for either of them?
Well, as TC put me right a couple of podcasts ago, low to middle, so no higher than 14. And let's hope they're not going to water. It's been a little bit of a bugbear across social media, and these horses should be running on good to firm ground. If they got the watering can out, then who knows what happens. But I think the draw would still stand to be lower draw the better.
Campanile being in this race adds a good dimension. There'll be plenty of pace somewhere. Do you imagine coming from America? She's shown a lot of gate speed. That will help Perfect Power. How do you think Christopher Simon's going to ride this horse now for speed?
Well, I think in the Greenham, he relaxed really well and he stayed on really well, but he was more forward than they'd ridden him previously. So I think he's probably got options now. I think Simon does quite like to ride the daring, weaving race, sort of his French flair. It suits his nature. But I'd like him to be perhaps a little bit more forward than he might be inclined to be. So that's the one issue. He at some point his luck's going to run out. I don't care what anyone says. If you're riding that sort of race, you, as well as talent for finding the gaps, you have got to have the luck that the gap stays open long enough for you to get through it. And at some point, his luck will run out. I hope it's not in this race. So those are the 2 issues. Will he get the gaps if he wants them, if he tries to ride a waiting race, and have they blunted his speed by trying to draw out his stamina? Yeah,
interesting. Perfect Power coming to it. He could be far superior to all of them, Tom, but it could have just been a bit of a strange route through, which might just sort of do him that slight harm, whereas a lot of horses come into this in exceptional form, really going through the gears, going up through the rate of knots. Alcabai has done nothing wrong. Eraz, as I said, a horse that you've got a lot of time for, ran a mighty race to prove, why he should be at the top side of this betting, and they've been trained for this race essentially from day one.
Yeah, well, he won a maiden last year at Ascot, and he was just so impressive that day. I instantly loved that horse. I don't know whether it's his looks or how he went through the race, but I got a soft spot for Eraz, as regular podcast viewers will know. And I backed him and tipped him last time out. I thought he should have won that race. He just didn't quite get there and pass your selection, which was Tiber Flow. I think he's going to be very well suited to a fast-paced 6 furlong sprint at Ascot. Everything is perfect for him in this race. If he's going to win at Royal Ascot, this is going to be the race he wins.
Yeah.
He's going to be one of my selections. The other is Perfect Power. Ross has already obviously made a phenomenal case for him. I'm happy they're reverting to sprinting. Last July I tweeted, this is going to sound like terrible after timing, and I apologise. But last July I did tweet that he'll win the Middle Park and then follow up in the Commonwealth Cup. And then I thought I was tearing up my ticket over the winter when they said they're going to go down the Guineas route. Fortunately, they reverted back now that he didn't stay a mile. So I'm on him at a nice, tasty price, and I fingers crossed he does win. But I'll also back Eraz as well, because I think I'll be probably more annoyed if Eraz won actually than if Perfect Power lost.
It's I feel like it's a confidence in that they've chosen the Commonwealth Cup, because they could have gone the Jersey, and that could have been as a trip that he's won over 7 furlongs. It might not have been such a hard task to go from one sort of extreme to another. So that they're very confident that they can get this job done is probably a boost.
Yeah, well, I think he was the best sprinter in Britain last year, without any doubt. Some people liked Asymmetric. He's obviously gone over to the US now, but I think he was a horse that wasn't necessarily going to improve from 2 to 3, and perhaps we just saw his best last year, whereas Perfect Power was just increasingly getting better and better for each start. I think he's a 6 furlong horse. He's a horse that stays 7 furlongs, but I think he's a 6 furlong horse. He's better when he can use his additional stamina and incredible turn of foot over this trip. He deserves to be favourite. I'm hoping he gets a middle draw, because I think he'll be 3 or 4 back off the leader, and then try and find the run, as Ross said. I think he's clearly capable of winning if he gets the trip, but so's Eraz. He's another that will be off the pace. If this race goes to a front runner, then it's not good news for me.
Yeah, so that's why I like Eraz here, as opposed to, I obviously tipped up Type of Flow, did have a lot of respect for him. I've also got a lot of respect for El Kabaya as well, but I do think Eraz, that this kind of race, this track as well, will really see out the best in him. Obviously it was painful really from your perspective to see Jim Crowley just not get there, but I think looking at it, he was possibly the best horse in the race. So I'm going to follow you in there with Eraz at 8 to 1. And Jim Crowley, we've seen him at his best here with the likes of Potash, and he knows how to ride this straight track well. And I think that he's a horse that possibly Rich Shannon's just been bashing his head a little bit against a brick wall, knowing that there's a true star within that. So he's really interesting. A horse I loved last year was Wings of War. I think for the Clive Cox team, he started pretty early on in the season in June, and he improved. His win at the end of the season at Newbury was like pretty hard fought as well. He's a tough horse. He didn't begin the season in the way that I thought he would do. They stuck cheap pieces on him last time, and he couldn't find many gaps. He got a load of trouble in running, and he actually finished really nicely and encouragingly for me to suggest that he probably might have just needed his first couple of races. And I'm happy to see him in here at currently 14 to 1 in a race which is massively open to definitely be in amongst some of the top 3. So he's a selection for me, but as both Ross and TC have said, the draw is adamant for this, and it is throughout the course of the week, especially for the bigger handicaps, so hence why we're not sort of focusing on them at this stage. Okay, that is the the Commonwealth Cup, excuse me. We're going to head on to the Coronation Stakes. The next race we're going to look at on the Friday. This is a top class renewal, this race. If majority of the horses hold their ground, we've got basically a Ryder Cup. We've got the best of the Europe versus the best of the US. We've got the English, Irish and French 1,000 guineas winners lining up, as well as the long anti-post 1,000 guineas favourite in Spiral, as I said, some classy international fillies, and Homeless Songs, who's the Irish 1,000 guineas winner, is the current favourite at 11 to 10. In Spiral, 11 to 4, Cachet 13 to 2, 7 to 1 for Prosperous Voyage, who was second in the 1,000 guineas, and Mangosteen, who's the French 1,000 guineas, is 9 to 1. So there we go, and add in Spenderella, the US filly, in here as well. So there's a lot to go through. TC, give us the full debrief about these American fillies, because it seems like from an American perspective, from what I know, their fillies on turf are a lot stronger than their colts, and that's why we've got such a good selection of them coming over.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, it's fantastic that there's 2 US horses in this race, in Spenderella and Pizza Bianca. Spenderella is going to be a slightly shorter price than Pizza Bianca. She's unbeaten in 3 starts. She looked really good in the Appalachian last time out of Keeneland, which was a grade 2. This is a step up, and as you say, this is a very hot race. Not only do we have the best UK runners, but as you say, the Irish and the French too. So it's going to be a proper test of Spenderella. Graham Motion has sent over Sharing for this race before. She finished second, so he kind of knows what horse you need to trouble the judge in the Coronation. I'm a bit on the tentative side with Spenderella. She's got very good tactical speed, which you see in so many US horses. Obviously, go to the front or sit prominently, has that gate speed. But this race could find her out. I think there's plenty of other speed horses in here. She's going to have to go hard early, and she's just dominated her last 2 races from the front. Never really seen another rival and kick clear. She's clearly very talented, but I'm not. I think this might be a step too far for Spenderella. That would be great if she did go close. Pizza Bianca, I think, is the better play in here at slightly bigger odds for Christophe Clement. She's actually going to be my selection in the race, despite the fact that Homeless Songs, who Ross will undoubtedly mention in a minute, deserves to be favourite and a clear favourite at that. But Pizza Bianca won at the Breeders' Cup, the Juvenile Fillies turf, and I loved how she moved from the back of the field straight to the front. She beat Malabath, she beat Cachet, obviously a much shorter price, though she has obviously improved for SBK Ambassador George Bowie this year by winning the 1,000 guineas. She beat Hello You, she beat Mise en Scène. So there's cross-collateral form there with UK runners. And she has a European style of racing. She's by Fastnet Rock, out of a Galileo mare, so she's bred also to handle European style races. She's not the typical American horse that everyone will see her on the race card and go, this horse is going to go to the front, she's going to bomb out. She's going to be a late finisher. She's going to close from off the speed, and I like that. I like her acceleration in this race. I think she matches Homeless Songs in that regard. Maybe she gives Homeless Songs the jump. Maybe Homeless Songs is slightly ahead of Pizza Bianca, and therefore she can't reel her back in. But I think Pizza Bianca at a double figure price is well worth a play.
16-1 currently. Do you know who will be riding her?
I don't. Jose Ortiz usually rides her, but I don't know who rides her at the moment.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see whether they pick an English, a UK-based jockey or not. What did you make of her first run of the season? Did she just need it?
It was a good run at Aqueduct. She got beat by a horse called Consumer Spending, who's very talented for Chad Brown and well regarded. Consumer Spending finished behind her in the Breeders' Cup, but wasn't given a good ride that day at all. I think they're quite closely matched. If Consumer Spending came over for Chad Brown's never sent a horse over to Ascot, and fingers crossed he does soon. Then she would be a short price. She'd be 10-1, 8-1. Pizza Bianca's the same kind of level as Consumer Spending. She might have needed the run. She did last year at Woodbine after a break. So it'll be intriguing to see how she performs. I think she's good enough. Fingers crossed that she runs well and gets the gaps when needed.
Yeah, okay, so that's a really good insight into Pizza Bianca for anyone that's not too sure about the US form, what we've got to look forward to here. So confidence behind her for our US authoritarian that is TC. So thanks to him for being here to give us some insight. Is that enough to sway you, Ross?
It didn't sway me, but it was very informative. I don't watch US racing, so I would have, exactly as TC said, looked at it and thought, yeah, front runner, track will find them out. Maybe not. But yeah, I do like Homeless Songs. This is the Guineas form on trial, isn't it? And I sort of looked at it and thought, as I've mentioned before, I always try and look at the favourite, right, how can we get it beat? And straight away I thought maybe the stiffer track will find her out. And then you watch it back. She was very explosive to put the race to bed, but she was very strong through the line. She's by Frankel out of a mare who's got plenty of 10 furlong winners in the family. Arguably on her pedigree, she should get 10 furlongs herself. So the track holds no fears. I thought she beat Tuesday far more convincingly than Cachet managed, and I think Tuesday is progressing with every run.
Yeah, agreed.
I don't go as far as saying that the Oaks form has boosted it, because clearly Tuesday has improved for trying a completely different discipline.
Yeah.
But I think Tuesday was a better horse in the Irish 1000 than she was in the UK 1000, and Homeless Songs beat her convincingly. So I just think that turn of foot is a potent weapon. Inspiral is the one we don't know about. I'm loathed to back a horse that's clearly had training issues through the spring. They were struggling to meet a target, and then literally 48 hours later they weren't going to get their target. I think she's clearly had issues. Fillies do take a bit of managing, and I just think there's a chance that Cachet and Spiral could sort of slug it out in the latter middle part of the race and set this up for Homeless Songs just to be able to travel in behind them and then pick them up when she wants to. So again, not a great price, but I think she's a very realistic winner of this race.
Do you think that there is a chance that Dermot Wild might not bring her over if the ground continues to get fast?
I think there is, but then with the ownership, there's a very real long-term benefit to her being a Royal Ascot winner. So I think if it was an ordinary run-of-the-mill Group 1, then yeah, perhaps. But I think it's a Royal Ascot Group 1, and I think that shouldn't be overestimated on her or underestimated on her pedigree going forwards. For an outfit that are, yes, they're breeding racehorses, but they're trying to create families as well. So I hope that she comes. But yeah, I mean, she's probably not going to want it rattling quick.
Yeah, it'd be fascinating to see what we get by Friday for Homeless Songs, because she does add such a special element to it, and she looks very straightforward. Both Frankel fillies, Homeless Songs and Inspiral, but I feel like there's something about Homeless Songs, her nature. Inspiral seemed to be pretty bulletproof as well. But there's something that's very mature about Homeless Songs, and she's got the best of Frankel.
Yeah, and Inspire last year, I mean, she kept winning, but never did I look at her and think, wow, that was impressive. Whereas Homeless Songs, for a 3-mile chase, man, she actually got my heart rate up a little bit. She looked impressive. Inspire, as I said, I'm not sure how good the 2-year-olds were last year. I just don't know she's going to have the tactical speed to deal with Homeless Songs, if I'm honest.
Yeah, we've found out the reason why we got him out of France. It's Homeless Songs. If she's done it for us. Look, I completely agree. I think she was devastating. And I'm going to add to Ross's confidence behind Homeless Songs. I'm going to throw in Discoveries and give her another chance at 12-1, as she actually had Homeless Songs behind her as a 2-year-old. I'm not sure whether she's either not trained on and she didn't run too well in the 1,000 guineas and she's just not the filly she was at 2, or she can be forgiven for that. She wasn't that suited, and the Jessica Harrington form wasn't as strong as it could have been. And she is she's a full sister to Alpha Centauri, and she's just better than that. So I'm happy to risk it's that case, the latter case than the former. So I'm going to give Discoveries another go at 12-1 as well for what is an exceptional renewal of the Coronation Stakes. Right, we've got to our final race that we're going to have a proper look at. This is the Platinum Jubilee on Saturday. The 6 furlongs for the older horses, 4-year-old and up. And if Nature Strip wins the King's Stand, he could line up here again. We could have a couple of horses that come and sort of back up their run in the King's Stand. And it sounds like that's what they might do with King's Lynn as well, for Andrew Balding, who tried to do this last year and was very unlucky. Blue Point obviously did the double in 2019. So this is always a bit of fun, and gives trainers the opportunity to be a bit creative as well. But it's all... The market is headed, TC, by Home Affairs, 4-1 favourite currently. The Australian Raider, who's been separated from Nature Strip. I know that you know everything about American racing. What have you thought about him compared to the others in this field? Does he deserve to be favourite?
Well, I had a look at his win 2 starts back where he beat Nature Strip. It was impressive. He went to the front. He'll probably go to the front again here at Ascot. Look, it's really difficult to match this horse up against, some of our English challengers, even against Campanelle. It's really difficult to match them against each other, compare them. I think he's too short. Look, he might go and win. I don't know the Aussie form as well as the US or the UK, but I want to be taking him on at that kind of price. Saying that, it does pay to back shortish price horses in this race. There's only been 2 horses sent off bigger than 10-1 that have won this race in the last 10 years. So you generally want to be on one towards the top of the market, despite how enticing some of these big price horses look. I'm going to side with Creative Force for Godolphin. He's 6 from 11 in his career, prolific sprinter, and he's definitely up to Group 1 level as well. Racked up a 4-timer last year. He capped that off with the victory in the Jersey, so he's got proven course form. He was crowned champion sprinter again on Kipco Champions Day at Ascot in October. That came on softened ground, but he likes it rattling quick as well. Mm-hmm. Yes, you're looking at his recent start and it's a duck egg, and you're thinking, God, this horse hasn't trained on at all, but he was found to be lame in the Alquoz. That clearly wasn't his true running. He's been given time since he's returning to Ascot. He's with leading connections, strong over this trip. I think he's a real dangerous player. We've also got to touch on the likes of Campanelle, who's just one of Wesley Ward's best horses. She's a fantastic filly. She's got course form. We know what she is. She's not one of these Wesley Ward horses that's coming over who we're like, how's this horse going to perform? We know she's going to perform. She's going to be bang up there from the outset and try and outstay them. I think she's a leading player, but I've never actually backed Campanelle when she's won a race, which is quite surprising for me for a Wesley Ward horse. So I've got to take her on again, just by morals.
Just purely on morals, yeah. She's obviously also bred by Tally Ho Stud. She's a daughter of Kodiak, so she's probably just maybe even more seen at her best when she's over here, and that's why they've campaigned her well over here. She's a 5-1 chance, and Creative Force for TC is 6-1. Ross, how have you looked at this race? There's obviously we've got a bit of water to go onto the bridge yet, as a big field as well, and we've got plenty of contenders as it stands. Is there anything that's standing out to you?
Yeah, I really like Campanelle. She's first past the post in 2 visits to this meeting. And I think she deservedly got the result reversed last time, but I liked how she showed an awful lot of guts in soft, heavy ground to really grind it out. So she'll see the 6 furlongs out really well. I think that the Aussie horses can create a bit of pace for her and help her relax, because she can take a bit of a grip, and I think the quicker they go, the better that'll suit her. Ira Adultiz, of course, will have had plenty of practice by the time we get to the Saturday, maybe even a spin on Broome, so he'll know the intricacies of the track.
His last
and
opportunity.
His last opportunity to get the headlines, everyone raving about what a brilliant jockey he is. And I think he'll take this on Campanelle. I think she's a strong chance. And I like the fact that this is her target. Plenty will double up, but I like that this is the target, and I think she'll take a fair bit of knocking.
Yeah, it certainly is the target for Campanelle. So 5-1 for Ross. I'm going to throw in a couple in here. I think King's Lynn, I think this is very much the plan to back this horse up in this race, which he did last year. But my gosh, was he unlucky in this last year. Ryan Moore was on board, and Oisin Murphy had been on board earlier on in the week in the King's Stad, and he was just unlucky in running in both races. But the crucial thing about King's Lynn is he's in much better form this season than he was this time last year. He's been shown to really good effect. He's clearly matured. He's getting better as he's getting older. He will need to get his gaps, but I admire the creativity of the Andrew Balding team to confirm that regardless, even if he bums out, runs a very poor race, and there's something that adheres to him running again, then they won't. But even if he runs in the top sort of 6 or 7, I'd imagine they're going to back this up. I'm going to put some faith in him, and he's 20-1, which is crazy for a horse who's been in great form. The other one is Happy Romance. She was a late non-runner at York recently. I'm not entirely sure whether that was something to do with the ground, whether that was unsuited to her because she doesn't want it on the softer side. If it was the ground and there wasn't anything physical wrong with her, then the quicker ground will suit her. If they go hard up front and Campanelle does all that work for her, she'll really appreciate it. She likes to come really late, and I think she's always overlooked in the betting at 20-1 as well. So those are two bigger price horses for the Platinum Jubilee Stakes over the 6 furlongs. So right, that comes to the end of our preview. We have focused on 8 of the key races at Royal Ascot, but with 7 races each day, there's so much more that we can look into. There's so much more to get into as well. We're going to get into our naps and our next best, and we're also going to get a selection of the 2-year-olds that myself, Tom and Ross all likes. But must make sure that you remember about the offer. New SBK customers can get £30 in free bets by depositing £10. T's and C's always apply. So that is your offer to take you into our naps and next best. So TC, kick us off.
Yeah, the nap's going to be Ottoman Fleet in the King Edward VII Stakes, which is the 5:35 at Ascot on Friday. Now, you need a mid-110s horse to win this race. Horses that have run in the Derby tend to run here as well. But Derby runners, obviously horses that haven't finished first, second or third in the Derby tend to run here. Derby runners don't usually get on very well in this race. As I say, you need a mid-110s horse. Reach for the Moon is going to be the horse that people are going to plump for, I imagine. He's run to 114, 115 in his career already, and therefore he's probably the horse to beat. But I'm sure that Ottoman Fleet is good enough to win a race this nature. He was set an impossible task on debut. Well backed in the market, but he was last. I know he broke slowly. He ran a little bit green, but he was raced last, and he finished second to a stablemate who was highly regarded at that point. Lionel finished third for David Monetier, and he's subsequently won the listed cocked hat at Goodwood, so the form stacks up. Much better from Ottoman Fleet last time out. Stumbled badly at the start, and we see this race after race in America. When a horse stumbles so badly, just knuckles, front legs knuckle, touch the nose on the floor, they find it so difficult to recover, and understandably so, right? You lose momentum, you obviously lose lengths between yourself and the protagonist in the race. But he somehow managed to come back and beat Zane Surinder, who's a decent horse for Tom Clover. I was really impressed with that run. He's by Sea the Stars out of a motivator mare, mile and a half. This is the perfect trip for him. I like Ottoman Fleet. And the next best is Perfect Power. We've already covered him. He's in the Commonwealth Cup, the 4:20 Ascot on Friday. Big day Friday. And I'm hopeful that the drop back to a sprint trip will see him a better light. I thought he was the best sprinter in the country last year. Yes, I like Eraz in the race as well. But Perfect Power is my outstanding anti-post bet, and I'm hoping he gets a clean run and wins the Commonwealth Cup.
And a 2-year-old to pick out of all of them that you've seen, who's impressed you the most?
Yeah, now, I was actually going to put a 2-year-old up as my nap overall, and Ottoman Fleet is my next best, but we have a special 2-year-old subject, so I'll stick with this bit, which is Statuette. And I know Ross doesn't agree because I've read his juvenile judge column. She runs in the Albany in the 2:30 at Ascot on, is it Friday? Yeah, it is. That's a huge day for me.
Yeah. Gets you out of trouble day if Tuesday doesn't go to quarter plan with all those favourites.
Yeah, well, that's going to be a big day. Fingers crossed. I haven't seen a more impressive debut performance all year from a filly or a colt. She took loads of money, sent off 11-10. Broke nicely, raced professionally, came alongside a previously raced horse called Olivia Morald, who has good form in the book, but just cleared away in the closing half a furlong. The way she hit the line, it was in the style of a horse who's well up to Group 1 standard, I think, in the future. Trained by the right guy, Aidan O'Brien. Yeah. She's by Justify. Yeah. She's out of Immortal Verse, who obviously won the 2011 Coronation here, and is also the dam of Tenebrism. There is nothing not to like about Statuette in the Albany.
Okay. Right, Ross Millar, there's probably a reason why you haven't chosen her, but we'll get to your 2-year-olds in a bit. If you could give me your nap and your next best, please.
So the nap is a bit of a chancy one in that she's a bit of a mad box of frogs. Is alcohol-free in the Duke of Cambridge. She was really gassy on a seasonal reappearance, as is her want. I thought it was a much more solid run behind Baid last time. She was nowhere near as keen. Not sure she was entirely ridden to beat Baid on that occasion. I think this has been the target, and I think they're 2 runs to take the edge off her, get her in her best frame of mind. She gets weight from a number of these rivals. As I said, I think this is the target. I think provided she behaves herself, and that is a bit of an if, I think she'll win this. And then the next best is one of your favourites, Lone Eagle in the Hardwick. Really strong form from last year behind Hurricane Lane in the Irish Derby. Clearly, I think, got injured at Ascot the following run and has been missing since then. Looked to get tired in the reappearance and also looked to race a little rustily. If he's come forward fitness-wise and sharpened back up again, got on his sort of racing game, I think this doesn't take an awful lot of winning. And I think he'll take that. And then my 2-year-old, I think the 2-year-olds are a really decent bunch this year so far. So in the Coventry, the Queen Mary, the Albany, I think you want to see what's running. The one that's really stood out to me, and he's not much of a price, is Alfred Munnings in the Chesham. He was picture perfect, Alfred Munnings, on his debut at Leopardstown. He was relaxed, he was balanced, he was really powerful to the line. Coolmore have won the last 2 renewals of this. They've won 3 of the last 5. I think he's a really, really smart colt. I think he'll win the Chesham.
Yeah, they look like they've got some really a good handle on their 2-year-olds, especially at this sort of extended trips as well. Okay, so alcohol-free, Lone Eagle, Alfred Munnings, the 3 specific selections from Ross. From me, Baybridge, we've talked about him earlier. We've all conclusively decided that this is the horse to beat and take away from the Prince of Wales's, and he's probably the most exciting horse that we've got to look forward to, and the most unexposed as well. So there's plenty more hopefully to come from him in the Prince of Wales. That's my nap. My next best is in the Britannia. Now there's a slight worry about the draw. There always is in these big handicaps, but who picked 50 and you? I've not been as impressed by a ride as I have done when David Probert rode him in the Silver Bowl at Haydock last time, because that don't think the track quite suited him. He missed the break. He had to come late, and he won despite everything going wrong for him. I think he's definitely that classic group horse in a handicap. Yeah, I said it, but I do think that this Britannia will bring out the best in him, a big old cavalry charge. So really, really like that horse for Clive Cox, who I can imagine is going to have a really good week. My 2-year-old, I'm going to cheat and have 2 because I love the 2-year-olds. I've got a filly, Love Reigns, who I know that TC will agree with me was absolutely explosive in her debut race at Keeneland. She's in the Queen Mary, and that 10-length win is nothing to underestimate, and I think that she could do perhaps a Lady Aurelia and win this race and win it well. But there are some nice fillies in the Queen Mary, but I think she could be head and heels above them. My other one is Persian Force in the Coventry Stakes, the best since Camford Cliffs, Richard Hannon says. Yes, it's going to be a competitive race. Yes, we've talked about how strong these 2-year-olds are, but I think this one's got a bit of star power, and I've been really impressed by how professional he's been, and having to take that conditions race with a penalty and winning so comfortably in the Brocklesbury as well is no mean feat. So that is it. So we've gone through all of the key races. We've taken you through all the international runners you need to hear about. We've got your naps, your next best, your 2-year-old horses. There is so much to look forward to ahead of Royal Ascot starting on Tuesday. Hope you've enjoyed this special edition of the SBK podcast. Thanks to TC, thanks to Ross for flying in from France. I hope you have a wonderful Royal Ascot. Make sure to like, subscribe, tell everyone about this podcast. Hopefully we found you a few winners too.